Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, blue liquor shills, dust lasers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And let's go back to the good old USA. I want to talk about Bernie Sanders again. And this is an interesting situation for me because there's a lot of things I like about Trump, and there's a lot of things I like about Sanders, and I wish I could combine the things I like about the both of them into one candidate. But the other thing that I'm most interested in at this point is the fact that the way the media and the status quo and the politicians all treat Sanders and all treat Trump. And this story is a good example of the way that Sanders is characterized in the mainstream media and is marginalized in the eyes of some people. And that's this AOL story that came out yesterday. And it says, the headline is Sanders' brazen, under the radar remark. And you go a little further, it says Sanders made a controversial move no other candidate has done. And then you go a little deeper than that, and it says remark that's raising some eyebrows, unquote. So once again, people that don't go any further than the headlines are going to say, oh, that nutty Bernie Sanders, what's he up to now? And the more you go into these headlines, you think, oh, this is going to be something really crazy. And then the only thing it turned out he did was expressed public sympathy for the Palestinians. And it's so demoralizing, the fact that having sympathy for the Palestinians is a controversial stance to take in this day and age. Really disheartening, really disappointing. And the fact that Bernie Sanders is the first presidential candidate probably ever in the history of the United States to show sympathy for the Palestinians is a shocking commentary in itself. And one of the things, of course, it belies is the fact that decades and decades of Israeli propaganda in the United States and making sure that the Israeli and Zionist narrative is the only one that gets heard is permeated American culture so much that even the idea of having sympathy for the Palestinians, let alone being critical of how Israel has treated the Palestinians for the last 75 years, being an issue. So what exactly did Bernie Sanders say? He said, quote, if we want peace, we are going to have to treat the Palestinian people with respect and dignity, unquote. So I reiterate the fact that we live in a day and age when a statement like that is a controversy, the first time spoken in a U.S. election, and the fact that that so many people find that statement so aghast when they hear that is really just beyond belief. And the fact that Bernie Sanders, he's never made a secret of this, and that's another part of this. So there's no surprise. He turned down the AIPAC meeting ostensibly to come here to Washington State to see 10,000 people, which is probably quite true. But the fact that he took the occasion to speak more about his policies and not showing up at AIPAC, but going on the news and talking about the fact that he has a problem with illegal Israeli settlements that are continuing to derail any so-called peace process. He's critical of the destruction of Gaza in this last assault in 2014. He's for a two-state solution, and he dares to say that he would be, quote, even-handed, unquote, with dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Incidentally, that's the same thing Trump suggests that gets him into trouble, that he would have a, quote, even-handed approach, unquote, in Palestine. And so I'll attach some other videos below that spell out that Bernie Sanders has been on the same page for decades as far as his policy with Israel and Palestine, and it's refreshing to have this conversation in U.S. politics. Although, as I say, the fact that it causes so much controversy and the fact that people think this is outrageous for him to suggest is very disheartening indeed. And so we see all these people who turn on him because of this policy. We see that the Jews who attended the AIPAC meeting, this last meeting, were very critical of Bernie Sanders for not showing up because, of course, AIPAC is almost entirely pro-Zionist. The one surprise that's going to come out of this is the fact that I would predict that most Jews in the United States support the policy of Bernie Sanders, and many American Jews are very critical of Israeli policy, and Bernie Sanders is one of them. So there we are. We have this outrageous, this controversial, this amazing statement that Bernie Sanders made, that, God, perhaps we should have a little sympathy for the Palestinians. How revolutionary. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.